Gopi. It's been a lovely time that we've spent together over the last couple of weeks, working together in Geneva for the United Nations event. And you've gone straight from that back to India, where you are speaking to us from today. Do you want to
Yes.
just share with us the project that you're currently working on in the headquarters in Mount Abu, Pandav Bhavan?
Well, for the last perhaps 5 or 6 years, I've been coordinating the Environment, Health and Safety Initiative for the BK headquarters here, which takes a very close kind of look into magnifying glass into the situation related to our water conditions and upgrading our water systems, upgrading our food safety systems, upgrading basically health, hygiene, and safety at various different levels. And so there's a lot of ongoing work. Very recently, we established the first biogas waste recycling plant in rural Rajasthan. And we now have collaboration with the local government to help them recycle their waste so we can transform waste to best. So that's one of the little projects I've been involved in, but many, many more.
I do find it extraordinary that you seem to be able to turn your hand to just about anything, whether it be wastewater, recycling waste, redesigning kitchens, organizing construction workers. These aren't things that you've necessarily trained in, and yet you seem to be able to manage teams who are doing such a variety of different jobs. What would you say is the skill that you have that enables you to do that?
I think, first of all, I don't claim to know anything. Um, being, uh, Having a plain intellect is very, very helpful. And I surround myself with people who do know what they need to know. And I think having a plain intellect allows me to keep a bird's eye view on many, many aspects. And I'm a very fast learner. So I sometimes act like a bit of a Buddhu, a little bit of an innocent fool in the gathering. I say, when they start talking about complicated, detailed, technical language, I'll just turn around and say to them, "Excuse me, can you please just explain that to me in really simple language? Because I don't understand." And I think having a voice in the room that is constantly keeping things simple allows things to become manageable and creates a very simple pathway to execution. And so I think the simplicity and a plain intellect and the ability to join up dots just is really what's needed. You don't need to know. I haven't studied formally in environment, health, and safety, but you learn as you go along. It's a wonderful adventure of learning and growing in these fields as well.
Mm. I don't think I can agree with you that you have a plain intellect. I think you have a razor sharp intellect. Whether it's also plain or not, I'm not sure. But when I observe you in action, I see the way in which you command authority from those around you. And as I said, we've just been in Geneva, and I've seen you in action with people who hold very high positions of authority. And they'll be telling you, we're going to do it this way. And you come back with a lot of self-respect and say, with all due respect, we're going to do it this way. And I've watched how they crumple and bow down to your authority. They can't argue with you. And I wonder if that has anything to do with today's topic, that you're fully connected to your true self and the source of your power. And people recognize that and they don't dispute it. They respect it. Are you aware of using your natural, authentic self in that way?
Probably not, because I just kind of feel like I'm just being myself. I think one of the things that supports that natural authority is a sense of love and benevolence, that everything I'm doing is not for me. That's very clear. I'm not involved. I have nothing in this. There is nothing for me in this. And because there's no self involved and there's no transaction involved, for me, it's very easy to see how a decision is benevolent for the whole. And when that's clear, then it's so easy for me to articulate that. And it is undisputable because I'm not coming from the space of my way or a preference. I'm coming in, opening up a space of inviting people into a decision that will actually benefit everyone and make everyone happy. And that often hits the mark because there's no self involved.
And you're not easily intimidated, because I observe myself in those same situations and I'm thinking, well, this person is, very senior, authoritative person within, the Indian embassy. Who am I to tell him? Or I have something around pleasing people, saying what I think they want me to hear, but that's not being authentic to what I'm truly feeling.
Yeah,
And
because
so I'm
there's
sort of, there's a gap between what I'm feeling and what people are seeing of me, whereas you don't have that gap.
because I don't see people. I understand that there is a bigger game at play, and there is a sense of an energy. Like if I'm involved, for example, in Geneva, it was a whole program around Yoga Day, and it was very clear to me that the message and the benefits of practicing meditation and yoga are enormous. And from my heart, I felt this message needed to reach people. It needed to benefit the people in our team that were contributing. It needed to benefit the people we're working with. It needed to go broader. And so I was looking at the whole. I wasn't looking at any one individual in that whole. And as I'm looking at the whole, it's not about people and personalities anymore. It's about process, and it's about bringing benefit. And when you stand in a space of benevolence, it's extremely secure, stable, clean, comfortable, and clear. It has no duality in it because it has no selfish motive in it. And that kind of energy easily moves through very different personality issues. And it melts different personality issues because I'm doing something that doesn't have an ego involved. So how does the other person in front of me hold up their ego and their personality? Because it's not about our personalities. It's about something much bigger than us. And I always keep my eye on that. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why I can take a stance on things where most people can't.
It's interesting you're using this word personality, which, sort of alludes to the persona. And so often in life, we wear a mask that we present to the world, which is our persona, the way in which we want the world to experience us. But very often it is just that. It is a mask that we're wearing, and there's a disconnect between the mask and the real me. And that creates a weakness in the way I'm presenting myself, because people can see through that. And I wonder if there's something about the authentic self which is stronger than any persona, any mask, any portrayal of ourselves that is other than our genuine true self.
Most definitely. I think when you practice meditation, you hit a place inside you that's very true and that's very clean. And that's beyond the mask of the persona. And I have a personality, but I'm not my personality. I'm something much bigger than my personality. It's a costume I use. I pick up Gopi when I need to. I drop her when I need to. And I can put on various different masks for different occasions, but the core of who I am, which is pure and true, remains firm. Now, when we practice meditation, we're actually cleaning conscience, we're cleaning intentions. We end up operating from a very selfless space. And that allows the divine to work with you. It allows you to tune in to connections way beyond yourself and to support something much bigger than you because you have no personal agenda. The moment you have a personal agenda, a preference linked to your personality, you want it this way, it's my way or the highway, you want it that way, the ego creates complications and limitations, and it does not have the capacity to join dots, kind of weave people into a bigger cooperative to support something higher, because you need to be in a very pure space to actually motivate and inspire not just yourself but other people to something higher than them.
Interesting, this idea of being in that pure space and the journey that we go on this spiritual path, because you're a Westerner, you're from the south of England, you were educated there, you're as Western as they come, and yet you have been on this journey of going from being a Westerner to someone who spends a lot of time in India now, wearing the appearance of the spiritual organization. And I wonder what that journey has been like for you, and what part of yourself you were authentic to at the beginning of that journey, and how it changed and evolved into what you are now. And do you feel that who you are now, you're more authentic than you were, or you're authentic to a purer part of yourself that perhaps you weren't in touch with in the early days? What has that journey of spirituality and authenticity looked like for you?
When you grow up in a particular culture, you adopt a mindset of that culture. And it's completely unconscious. You're not even aware of it, that you start thinking like that. You start thinking in strategic ways, rational ways, logical ways. And a lot of it is the influence of the culture you're raised in. And when I started working in depth in India, although I've been visiting India for many years, my roots are in India. But the first thing I had to do when I worked with people here was to break down my Anglo-Saxon mindset, which I didn't realize I had until I arrived in England. And I think there was a frustration at first, because my feelings were pure, my intentions were pure, but my mindset kept getting in the way, because I kept wanting meetings to start on time and everything to be logical. And this is a culture that doesn't work with logic. It works with bhavna. It works with pure feeling. They don't always come on time for the meetings. Meetings don't always have agendas, even though I have an agenda, not that we stick to it. They'll go off on one. And so I've had to kind of dismantle that mindset and accept the kind of, how do you say, the waves of the ocean, the waves of how people want to be, where they want to go, and then gently bring them back. And so in one sense, what it's helped me to do is exercise a deeper part of myself beyond logic and rationale, which is often connected to mindsets, connected to personality, that shape your personality. So it's really helped with that dismantling process, so that I really just have to work with patience, with tolerance, with pure love, with peace. And these are universal. And this is where the real authenticity lies, because you're not relying on a part of your personality to get something done. You don't need to push your knowledge base, your skill base, your talents, nothing. You have to rely on the core qualities that you carry as an inner being. And that's the energy that allows you to guide clarity back into process, bring people together, enable some kind of order to manifest. It's got nothing to do with skills anymore. And I think that's very important. And I've kind of seen that with my mentors, the daddies, especially Daddy Janki. Daddy Janki came to the West in 1974. She came from India at a time when the Brahma Kumaris services of the BKs were expanding in India. And she left like a class of 300 to come here to a class of 10, 11. And those two not daily students. And I used to ask her, I said, Daddy, did you not ever think, oh, I've left that and I've come here and they're not coming every day. How is world service going to expand? And she said, never. She said in her morning meditations, she would see hundreds of thousands of lights and souls. And she stayed connected with this deep benevolence of what God wanted to do through her. And she had full trust that if he wants something accomplished, if he wants to serve his souls, people will come in front of her. And every soul that came in front of her, she She gave full dedication and attention to nurturing them. And it was like she found her path to world service, not through a logical, rational, pre-planned thing, but by listening to the signals from up above and to the drama, and really surrendering herself and being sincere in her response to each signal. So she did her best at each step of the way. And then naturally something unfolds. And I think that's an element of authenticity, where it's not a left brain or overtaking right brain, but it's bringing your being, the trueness of who you are, into what you're doing in each moment, and into who you're interacting with in each moment. This was one of Daddy's specialities.
Yeah, a beautiful story. I wonder, is there a kind of bridging between the authentic self as we see ourselves, as, you know, beings, embodied beings, doing particular work, living in a particular family, feeling that we're being authentic to our worldly selves, but also then being authentic to the vision that God has for us? In other words, the message we get from our daily spiritual teachings is that, you know, you're not the body, you're the soul, and this is how God sees you, and this is the hope that God has for what you can achieve in your life. Is there a discrepancy there between those two authentic parts of ourselves? And if so, how do we blend that? How do we make it so that we're the same, whether it's our vision for ourselves or God's vision for us?
Well, I suppose the contrast is, who am I? Am I a being just having a human experience? Or am I a human having a spiritual experience occasionally? And I think what meditation starts to do is to distance you and detach you from the human experiences. It allows the human processes to become more fluid without you becoming more upset, engaged, reactive with it, which is a natural kind of healthy detachment. You know, things at the human level are polarized. They are passing. They come in waves. Nothing is static. Nothing is permanent at a physical level. And when you realize the true nature of matter, and then the true nature of the self, then there's a deep acceptance of the reality that I am a spiritual being eternally, and I'm going through a transient human experience. So I don't need to get hung up if there's a human experience of failure one day. Well, I can create another human experience of success the next day, because it's in my hands. It's such a transient energy that I can create whatever experience I want at a human level. And I think that's the purpose meditation serves, is it brings us back to a place where we feel like we're more in self-control. I am a master. I have my faculties, my subtle faculties inside, and I can choose to create the experience I want in my life. And that's very important. It's something I realized very, very early on when I started to meditate, that actually the power is all in here. It's how I think about it, how I feel about it is what ultimately manifests. Now, that reality is something I have deeply accepted and realized, because it's a reality to be realized. It is a reality. And in that, I think the second thing is all the hang-ups we carry because of failed human experiences. Those are the issues. We can't let go of the mistakes. We can't stop feeling guilty. Guilt is just hanging on to a human experience that's outdated. And we're kind of trying to make it relevant. And actually, it's gone. Time has taken that situation away from you. And we're still reversing, going back in reverse. And kind of, you know, the needle on the, what do you call it? The disc that just keeps stopping in one place and doesn't keep moving. So there's no music, there's no proper sound coming out from us. Our being isn't serving. And so I think that these kind of, I'll call them maybe negative human experiences, or, you know, failed human experiences that we're not comfortable with. That's part of the journey. And this is where, within the ancient philosophies of the East, the concept of time plays such an important role. And the fact that purity in the West is just one word, pure, and it's often linked to chase, something unreachable, something sterile, something not. But purity in the Eastern concept is a cycle. It's a cycle of sato, rajo, tamo. Sato being the most elevated state of the highest fullness, frequency, light, illumination, abundance. Rajo being when that's come down. It's basically describing entropy. When it comes down to a middling level, when energies are conflicted, we've lost the abundance. So our mindsets are now becoming controlling of our physical environment, our physical bodies. Competition, comparison increases. And then as we go further steep into that, as we continue to take rebirth, we enter a tamo state where we become subservient to matter. And a sense of inertia is created, helplessness is created. And that's when violence increases. And then, within the Eastern philosophy, there comes a moment in time where things have to move forward and reach a sato stage. But that requires a divine intervention to recharge the battery, to replenish the spirit. And so, having grown up with that very fluid understanding of purity, I don't have to deny the Rajo and Tamo dimensions of my being. As a human being, I can embrace the full story, the heights of perfection and the degradation of having fallen, so to speak. And that's very, very important, because to become truly authentic at this time, when we're in the soup of so many things that are not working, that are complicated, that are negative, that are breaking down, being authentic requires radical acceptance of the whole. And it's a simple example. Take a tomato. You buy a beautiful, red, healthy looking tomato. You leave it on your kitchen table. You go away on holiday for a week. You come back. What's it going to look like? It's going to start rotting, right? This is natural entropy. It's something that goes from a potential state to a spent state. It starts rotting. Maybe there's maggots growing in it. You come back and you find this tomato rotting away on your kitchen table. What are you going to do? Pick it up and throw it in the bin. You're not going to have a barmy over it. You're not going to have a reaction over it. You're not going to stop your whole life for it. And so understanding that there are elements of ourselves that have been like that, and elements in our surroundings that are like that. It is the way it is. It's the nature of matter. And in the human dynamic that we're engaged in for birth after birth. And when that radical acceptance comes, you stop reacting to your environment, to your own past, to the people around you. And in a very natural way, the real resources of the soul inside, your love and your peace and your intelligence, start to work for you. So there is a sense of a reshifting of our understanding of time, our understanding of entropy, our understanding of the journey of purity that we have to deeply accept inside. And I come to a place where I have deeply accepted and recognized the flaws in me. But they are not me. They are a small element of my journey, but they are not me. But I accept it. So I'm very comfortable because I'm not resisting that. Most people are not comfortable with their unworthiness because they're still resisting that element, the Rajotamo element of their story. Well, it is what it is. We had to go through that cycle. Everybody has to go through that. It could happen in a short span of time, whether you're in a project, you start with high intentions, then you get corrupt along the way, you get influenced. It happens in every sphere of life, the Sato Rajo Tamo cycle. And when you understand this, you can regain your self-respect again.
Yeah. On this journey with Raj Yoga, in the early days, we never used to talk about authenticity. There was an extent to which we were modeling ourselves on our seniors, and seeing their high example and trying to be like that. And I think some people twisted and contorted themselves to appear as if they were the same as their seniors. But then this word authenticity started creeping in, and it was around being truly yourself, accepting your imperfections. We're not perfect yet. And there seems to have been quite a cultural shift within the organization for showing up for the whole of who you are, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And that's okay, because as you're saying, we're each of us on a journey, and it's fine. It's part of the journey. Do you see that same shift as having happened?
I do. I see that the daddies, the elder sisters, modeled this very well. Each one was so different, so unique in their personalities, but yet themselves.
Yeah.
There was no issue amongst themselves that they were different, but yet they allowed each other to be different. And there was the space to accept and love each other. There was a genuine love and respect for each one's uniqueness. And having grown up with so many of them, I felt very accepted for who I was.
Mm.
Now, what happens is when you start meditating and you start a spiritual journey and you start elevating, all your stuff emerges, which in one sense starts to create a crisis of self-respect, right? Within the crisis of self-respect, when your unworthiness erupts and all that rubbish emerges, you can, if you don't have good friends or you don't have a good discipline, you can get derailed because you can start having, unworthy thoughts of yourself, which it's like a wave, but it has to be cleared, but you have to pass through it. Now, what's interesting that I've noticed is that when people haven't addressed their insecurity and these waves, they enter a power struggle inside themselves. And that power struggle then gets projected externally to be associated with a powerful figure. So you end up then trying to copy the person you're putting up on a pedestal, right? And then the very person you put up on a pedestal, you drag them down again. It's what happens. In India, they have this funny ritual. They will take the deities on a walk around, right? They'll create all these images of the deities, idols of the deities. Then they'll go and sink them in the sea. And it's a classic call out to what we do when we start the path of adulation, adoration, because we struggle with our own sense of power inside. So by definition, we seek associative power. We borrow the power of powerful souls through proximity. And that proximity, okay, it's not maybe a blood connection, but it creates a form of nepotism, spiritual nepotism. You know what I mean? That then twists things further. And I think when you have allowed yourself to say that whoever I am, whatever I am, in this package, I have been accepted by God. With my lot, my whole lot, I've been accepted by God. So who am I not to accept myself? It is a height of arrogance not to accept oneself. When you've been accepted by the universe and by God in the current state that you're in. And that's always the benchmark I start with, that I am completely and utterly accepted as I am. And if there are any issues in this, they're all mine. And they're a product of my ego, especially the inverted ego, the unworthy ego that struggles with power, struggles with communication, because of a past influence. I mean, yeah, we've taken a lot of births. We believe in rebirth. We've taken a lot of births. We haven't been very pure in those births, in our karma. We perhaps haven't been very sincere. We've done things. We've made mistakes. At some point, it comes around, you have to face that music. But again,
yeah, listening to what you're saying, I'm really feeling an understanding around the importance of detaching from the world around you. Because, we're so affected by the water that we swim in, the environment that we live in,
absolutely,
the values, the expectations that we place upon ourselves to look a certain way, be seen as successful, ticking all the right boxes. And we aspire to a level of authenticity that is defined by society. And yet, in order to find your true authenticity, you have to unhook the threads that tie and connect you to that way of thinking. And so the
Correct.
spiritual journey to the authentic self will, by definition, involve cutting those ties that bind you and hold you to a certain model of who you are, because that's not the true version of who you are. So detachment from the world is an absolutely necessary part of finding your authentic self.
It is. And I remember, in India, this whole attachment to the way society perceives you is called lok laj, the opinion of others, the
Mhm.
opinion of society. It's a
Mm.
very deep illness. Most people would rather suppress themselves than to be seen, um, you know, in public. You want to fit in, want people to look at you. Remember asking Daddy Janki, how did she become so spiritually powerful? And she said, because we broke lok laj. We broke the opinion of society. Right, that was true. And it was a decision. Women in those days were second-class citizens. They didn't have any legal rights. They didn't have any financial rights. They didn't have any voting rights. That stood up and said, you know what? Our bodies are ours. We want to reclaim our sovereignty. We want to reclaim our happiness. And we would like to do it like this. And very lovingly and patiently, they negotiated their freedom. And freedom is this ability that nobody should be able to stop me from doing what is right, and nobody should pressure me to do what is wrong. So to create a sense of independence inside, an alignment with your conscience, your truth, your trueness, the trueness of your peace, the trueness of unlimited love, the trueness of wisdom, the trueness of bliss, these original qualities. Truth is not a concept, it's a reality that cannot be refuted. When you look at a picture of the ocean, for example, you look at the picture and think, oh, that's really nice, but you don't feel the ocean, do you, through that picture? But when you're actually sitting at the shore of the ocean, you're in it. You feel the energy of the ocean. This is the difference. This is what meditation invites us to do, is to step away from the image and just please yourself with an external image, and to step into the experience of who you are. Step into that inner ocean, into the depths of your qualities. Start swimming in that place and see how it completely rewires you and reforms you. So we go from being image conscious, form conscious, to being soul conscious. And when you're being soul conscious and your anchor are your qualities, your true qualities, you really experience a state of pure benevolence and pure altruism. And that's such a beautiful place to be in. The world is yours. Everyone is yours. And I think there can be no greater happiness than that feeling.
Well, I think we're all feeling it. You've spoken so fluently, and I'm feeling the waves of that ocean, and I feel like I'm absolutely there. I'm just going to pause here for a moment and just see if there's anyone who has got a question that they would like to put to Sister Genti. Sometimes we have a microphone in the class, we may have that today. Or if you have a question in the chat and you would like to put that in the chat, then we can pick that up from the chat as well. Any questions from the hall? Right, I think we do have a question in the chat. No, I think that was a question that started coming in and then hasn't come in fully.
Om Shanti, I have a question.
Thank you.
Sometimes you feel very guilty when you are on this journey. At times, sting comes in your life and you feel like you can never succeed. You feel like you're falling apart. And that makes me feel sometimes very sad. I'm putting my goal there and the other obstacles are coming. I'm trying my best. And at times it makes me feel really down. And if somebody can guide me what I can do in this situation.
Thank you for your question. Sister Gopi.
Thank you. I think in those situations, I think it's one of the things that I thought of about being authentic at this time is to understand your greater purpose in life. Daddy Yankee would always give us 3 questions. Who am I? Who do I belong to? And what do I have to do? And when you understand the unlimited nature of your purpose, then you don't get stuck in minute goals in life. You're fluid with the smaller issues in your life. So whether they happen or not, it doesn't matter. But when you start to get attached to a limited goal in your life, oh, I want to accomplish this at this time, I want to accomplish that at that time, I want to accomplish, and you start to dictate and control your life's trajectory, then what happens is you are subjecting yourself to becoming insecure. Because it's like holding an aspect of your human experience and saying, I want it to be like that, it has to be like that. And that's not a real space. That's not a true space to be in. So you're creating your own trauma by holding that goal in mind. But if you're able to step back and say, you know what? I have a higher purpose here. I have a connection to something bigger than this. And there are elements in my life that will come that I can learn from. And so there are pieces that will come. Okay, let me just be flexible with this. Okay, let's experiment. If this happens, what's possible? If it doesn't happen, what's possible? You're coming at things in a much more open-minded way and a much more fluid way because you know things are changing all the time. But, we have so lost the awareness of ourselves as spiritual beings. And as a result of that, lost a sense of our higher purpose and our higher connectivity, that our lives are just about me, me, and me. Me, my job, my career, my family, my this. Let me just work out my small little world. To hell with the rest. And you know what? When you start to meditate, that breaks down. It has to break down. Because every human soul is connected. We are interconnected. We are living in a planet that is a cooperative. We foolishly say, oh, my chair, my house. Did you make your house yourself? Did you make the materials, the wood yourself? It's a cooperation from nature. We are living in a cooperation, and it's the strength of my benevolence and my being that draws facilities to me. So being more achieves more, if you know what I mean. Sometimes doing more achieves less. And often in the spiritual soul conscious mindset, as we are being more and emitting a higher frequency of vibration, we are attracting more to us. But when we lose that awareness and we enter a body conscious mindset, we end up doing more and we achieve far less. And we end up pushing those things away. People sometimes come to me and say, I want to earn this much by the end of the year. And then they get so disappointed they didn't. And they start, when they get challenges in the way because they're fixed on earning a certain amount of money or fixed on earning a limited human goal, and their expectation of that starts to invoke the challenges. Because nature, you're not built to just be human. You're built to be a human being. So nature won't allow you to get stuck on something too long. It will throw a curveball in your path for you to let go. So I think that you need to go back and look at the framework of something. If I find myself in a situation like yours, the first thing I would do is go back to, well, hang on, what's my purpose here? I would reframe my purpose so that I would rise above the limited goal I'd set for myself that suddenly becomes like a fanatic end-all, be-all or end-all of my life, and when it's not.
I like your answer to that question because it really makes us think about, authenticity in terms of ourself, authenticity in terms of our relationship with others, but also in the work that we do. How authentically myself am I in the work that I'm doing? Is this what I am being called to do? like Daddy Janky said, what's mine to do? And I think if we're involved in work that doesn't align with our authentic self and our life purpose, that does create a schism that causes sorrow. And
Correct.
maybe we need to take appropriate action so that we are working in a way that is fully aligned with our authentic self in order to really
Correct.
feel our true selves. And that's an important point for many people.
Correct. You know, I've kind of changed the way I work inside. I do a lot of observation and I do a lot of listening to signals, listening to my conscience, listening to God's voice in meditation, listening to the signals in the world, and I align. I'm always observing these signals and I'm looking for patterns. I'm looking for what's the message at this point in time for me. And at that point, when I do all the signal reading from all these different, and I kind of get a sense of the message at this time, then I know what I have to do. And that's very real because I end up plugging into something that's very relevant, very real, and very beneficial for more people than just myself. But, you know, it takes a certain level of renunciation to reach that place because, you know, here I am. I started a path and a career to be a lawyer. And very quickly, like 2.5 years, and I thought, you know what? I need some help to strengthen myself spiritually. I mean, I can come back to a lawyer. And at that point in time, you know, what I was being sold was, well, you know, this is how the world works. You grow up, you go to university, you get a degree, you come out, you get a job, you get married, you get 2.5 children, and that's life. And I didn't see a lot of happy people living this kind of life. And I thought, well, where am I in all of this? And, you know, it was funny when my grandfather passed away and I was faced with death, did I wake up to life? And I said, nobody. I will dictate the choices in my life so that when I leave my body, I can leave my body with my head held high, knowing that I did everything that was in my power to give the best of who I was in whatever I did.
Okay,
And that's
we've
the
got
decision you have to make.
yeah. You know, really at a young age, you've got a very smart head on your shoulders and made some good decisions because you might have had external success if you'd carried on down that path. But I don't think you would be feeling as fulfilled as what you feel doing the work that you're doing now. A couple of quick questions which I'll bundle together to finish off with. My authentic self wants to get up for 4 o'clock meditation. I set my alarm. Baba wakes me up, but I'm just too tired to get up. What do I do when my authentic self is having an argument with the part of me that wants to sleep in that moment? And another question, if I let go of everything, what guarantee do I have that I will find my authentic self? Because if I let go of my worldly success and my worldly ties and persona, how do I know I will arrive at a place that I'm happy with? I might just lose everything that I've got.
Let me start with that. When I left university halfway through a 4-year degree, one day I woke up and, you know, I'd been playing with it for a while. It wasn't about leaving. It was about, I know I need a change in trajectory. I know I need a change. I need to spiritually strengthen myself. I didn't know how. One day I woke up and there was this voice in my head, today's the day to leave. It was like my conscience just spoke to me. I walked into the dean's office, 8 o'clock in the morning, and I said, excuse me, I just need to resign from the course. Don't worry about it. I'll come back when I'm ready, but I need a sabbatical. I need to sort myself out. I really need to work out my spiritual compass. He looked at me like I was mad. He called my parents. I said, look, I'm of age. I can make my own decisions. So please just give it to me. So eventually he had to give me a letter. And I resigned. I went home that morning and I met my father. And my father, very patient, very, very, beautiful human being. And I said, Dad, can I come and talk to you? Come and sit in the garden. And I started to stream. I just said to him, Dad, I've been thinking about this for a while. My spiritual journey is like this. And I feel that if I'm going to go out in the world and we're going to get some justice, I can't fight for justice. I can't fight for peace. I've got to strengthen myself spiritually. So I've made a decision today, and I've done this, this, and this. And I must have rambled on for 20 minutes. And I said to him, you know what? I have no idea where this is going to take me, but I feel it's the right decision because I feel like I've honored a voice inside myself. And it feels a little bit like jumping off the edge of a cliff, not knowing where I'm going to land, but I know wherever I'm going to be, it'll be safe. And there was like this parachute of faith I was jumping off with, right? And he was listening to me, and he listened to everything. And then he said at the end, he said, you know what? The most important thing in life is your happiness. If you make a decision for your happiness, I'll support you.
Wow.
He didn't give me any benchmarkers of, oh my God, don't you realize what's it going to like to grow up in this world? If you don't get a degree, how are you going to get a job? How are you going to earn money? How are you going to support yourself? And we've sacrificed so much for you. He didn't even go there. He was just sitting. He's a long-term meditator. He just connected to God, and he just brought me right back to truth. That your happiness and your peace and your love are a bigger energy than anything limited. Just strap on that parachute and jump off the cliff. When you do something with love, how can it not be successful? When you do something with peace, how can it not be successful? When you do something with faith, how can it not be successful? It is who you are that is going to be released. And so, you know, that your conscience will tell you. Your conscience will speak to you. Don't kill your conscience. For the sake of just holding on to a few chickpeas. And the second thing about waking up at 4 a.m. in the morning, you know what? First of all, make sure you don't have your mobile phone anywhere near you. That's really important. And create a temptation for yourself to get out of bed. You know, put your alarm clock on the other side of the room, make you get up to go and switch it off, because it gets you out of bed. And the moment you've got out of bed, a different dynamic takes over. So find a method, because, you know, sleepiness and tiredness at that time of day is a habit, but it changes after a while. And the thing is, the first moments of when you wake up, those moments are often dictated by how you've gone to bed at night. And usually we're very careless when we go to bed. We've either been on screen time going to bed, watching videos, talking to people. We've still got the world in our head before we go to bed. And I know that when I've done that, then I will wake up the next morning feeling groggy and tired. And I will have the gravity of my body pulling me away from my practice. So what I've done, and it's something Daddy Janki taught me, never go to bed with a heavy head. Empty your head at night. That's really crucial. Have some meditation, 15, 20 minutes, sit with God, empty your heart, write it out, journal if you need to, clear that energy and upload everything. And the moment you feel a sense of lightness and clarity, like the day has passed, like it's not happened, you know, there's like a full stop, then pick up something elevated to read. You know, we have our texts, our Murlis that we read. And this is something we've been told, that you must just read a page or two of the Murli. And as you read that, you'll start to feel sleepy, then go to bed. Because the last thing that goes into your subconscious are elevated thoughts. And that'll be the first thing you wake up with. And that makes the journey of stepping beyond the gravity of the body much, much easier.
Beautiful.
So make your bed nights, make your nights work for your mornings to work.
Make your nights work in order for your mornings to work. Love it. Talking of going beyond the gravity of the body, could we close with a few moments of meditation and alignment with our soul purpose, our life purpose, our authentic self? And you can carry us away with some powerful feelings that will nourish and nurture us on our way ahead. That would be lovely, Gopi.
Thank you, Philippa. Thanks for your questions, and lovely to have a conversation with you again.
Always.
And thank you to everybody online. So let's just take a moment and sit up straight. Give your body that respect and straightening your spine. And just take a deep breath and hold it for a moment. And as you exhale, just allow yourself to become present in this moment now. Breathe in again. hold it and release slowly and become present. And on third breath, as you breathe in deeply, just follow your breath in. Who is making this body breathe? And then as you exhale, follow the flow of your breath out. And allow your breathing to settle into a gentle rhythm. And as you follow your breathing to its source, you just become aware of a very subtle presence inside. The awareness of yourself as a more subtle being beyond this human form. And this is a life-giving energy. It's making you think. It's making you breathe. It's so benevolent. It's an energy of love. If left alone, it's very peaceful. It loves peace. So now gather this energy. Visualize this energy concentrating, rising up through your body, rising up through your chest, through your neck, and concentrating behind your eyes. And as this energy concentrates, it becomes a ball of light, seated in the command center, behind your eyes. And for a few moments, you just let go of your form, your name and form, as you know it now, and surrender to this light. And just let yourself become the star of light. And just feel the peace and serenity of this light. The softness, the quiet beauty. And for a few moments, you're stepping into the eternity of who you are as a spiritual being, living this human experience. There's nothing to fear, nothing to hide. You can just be for as long as you want. And in this space, know that whatever you are, however you are accepted as a child of God. And God's love and light is a fabric of your inner being because you are his child. And sit in that comfort of knowing that you belong no matter what. You have always belonged, and you will always belong. Om Shanti.